Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. So glad you joined me today. I have another product review for you today, but really it's going to be focusing more about the craft than the product because have you ever had those fabrics in your stash that just didn't fit in quite right with what you wanted to use them with? Well, we're going to fix that today. I have several different fabrics and we have those leftover strips from our vintage quilt that we're going to do something with to make them a little more vintage and a little more usable. So why I'm in the backyard is, one, because of what we're going to be doing here in a moment. Two, because I do have a product review for you. I got this awesome hose. It was provided for me for free just to do a demonstration. Basically, they told me it's a heavy-duty garden hose. It's 25 foot long. It's the not supposed to kink. And I don't know about you, but I absolutely hate it when I'm in the middle of a project and I'm spraying something off and then I'm like, what the heck? Where'd the water go? And it's because the hose kinked on me. Again, for the millionth time. So we're gonna try this out. I will say I have cut the two little plastic loops that were on it in the box, and I did notice, this is the end that hooks up to the house, or your spigot or whatever, and it is kind of bendy here. It's kind of flat, so I'm hoping this isn't going to be a problem, but we'll find out. They told me no kinks, and I mean, to me, that's gonna be we'll figure it out. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hook it up, and I will point out that they do have these really cool handles on both ends of the hose that swivel without the hose turning, so it should be easier to hook up than a normal garden hose that you get wherever. The other end was the same way, and I just hooked that up to my sprayer nozzle, and then we're just gonna drag it over to the spot where I am going to do something pretty cool to some fabric today. So let's get this hooked up. All right, so I don't know if you can see behind me, but I will say that we definitely have a couple kinks in the hose. So the whole non-kinking thing, I'm not sold on that. All right, but it's not going to phase us in the slightest for our crafty project. All right, so we have talked about tea dyeing, cross-stitch fabrics and linens and things like that in the past, but we haven't talked about it for our quilting fabrics. So there's a couple different things you have to keep in mind when it comes to quilting fabric and tea dye. Tea dye does not stand up like forever and ever, right? It's going to fade a little bit. Whatever color you get initially from your tea dyeing, it's not gonna be like that after you wash it 20 times, right? So you gotta keep that in mind, but it will still have a tea stain look to it because most of our quilting fabrics are 100% cotton, and cotton is a really good fabric to use for dyeing because those natural fibers just absorb the dye and it just holds it, and it's great, okay? So I have these two fabrics, and one of them, I feel like this would look so much better if it was just tea stained a little bit. I think it would blend better with this one. So I'm gonna tea stain this one to make it kind of complement the other fabric a little better. Then I also have these leftover strips from our vintage quilt. I'm gonna tea stain those. I'm gonna use those in an upcoming project to kind of wrap up that series or kind of give you a bonus video for that. But we're gonna tea stain these today just to give them more of an old, kind of a grungy type of look, okay? So we're gonna do that. And then I also have some fall fabrics. If I get to that point and if I am like okay with how much tea I have left, then I may go ahead and stain these too because I don't know. I think fall fabrics, when I think fall, I think more tans and beiges, and I want them to look a little more rustic. I don't like these bright whites, and this fabric honestly came from Joann's probably 10 years ago, and I haven't used it because I'm just like, it's so bright white. I don't know how to put that into a quilt with a fall theme where I would like it. So we're gonna tea stain that if I have enough tea left. And then the other thing I wanna show you is just a white on white fabric. And this one has kind of like an embossed little leaf onto it. And those leaves will not take the tea stain the same as that white cotton background. I apologize for my ridiculous little Sheba, but you know, this is her house. We're only here as her visitors, apparently. All right, so let's go ahead and do the chicken fabric first. And the reason I have the hose over here is because I am going to put this in here for, you know, a minute or so. And then I want to spray it out to see where I'm at with it. And if I don't like the color, then I can put it back in the tea again. So here we go. And honestly, I think this tea is deep enough that I'm going to go ahead and put these in too, just because Why not? Now, I will tell you, when you pull this out initially, you're probably gonna be like, whoa, that's amazing. That's such a great change. But once we rinse it out, you're gonna see that it hasn't taken that dye quite as quickly as it initially looks. So let's do that. And this was not a straight cut of fabric. Okay. All right. So we're going to just take that over to the garden hose right here and spray it out. And obviously I could have done this in the house at the sink, but I don't know. It's a beautiful day outside. I wanted to show you guys the garden hose. And I thought, why not? Let's go outside and do this. And it's tea, so it's fine that I'm wringing this into the ground. Nothing's going to happen from the tea. All right, so here is the fabric now. I probably am going to go ahead and put this back in the tea for a few more minutes. But let's grab our little vintage quilt pieces and see where they're at. Now, these vintage quilt pieces, I will tell you that they're older, right? They're not modern fabrics. So we're just gonna spray this out. All right, so you can see the difference. This is what I was talking about. When you first take it out of your tea, don't look at that and think, oh, that's the color I'm gonna have. It's not, because see, look at the difference between this. This one's been rinsed, this one hasn't. So you can see that that tea is going to rinse out. So most of the time, I will go ahead and let this sit in the tea for probably 10 minutes, just like set a timer, and then come back and take it out and see what you have. Now I am gonna go ahead and wad this one in here as well, just because. Okay, so I have all of that submerged, and I'm just gonna let this sit for like 10 minutes, and then we will come back, rinse it out again, and see what we have. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes, and I'm going to just rinse out these fabrics. They have soaked up a lot of the tea, so honestly, the first thing I'm gonna do is just wring them out a little bit. I should have saved a piece of this fabric so you could see what it looked like before, but I didn't do that. So you're just gonna have to rewind the video and look. So this one, I am pretty happy with what it looks like right now, but obviously we're gonna have to rinse it out a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do with these after they're rinsed out is I'm just gonna throw them in my dryer and get them dry, and then I'll put some, and I'll put some videos or some pictures in at the end of the video to kind of show you what they look like after they're dry, so you can get the idea there. Like I said, I'm just going to rinse these out pretty good. Now, if you were doing this in the house, which honestly that's how I usually do it, you would just run this under your cold tap water and just rinse until the water is clear. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have done tie-dye before, but it really is the same process. And honestly, this is probably the original tie-dye. Instead of a tie-dye, we're doing a tea-dye. Haha. All right, so that's pretty good and clear. So I'm just going to put this one to the side and rinse out the other ones. Now we still have those vintage quilt pieces, and we also have the white fabric that has some embossed leaves on it. So I'm gonna rinse those out, and then we will see what we have. I'm honestly kind of wishing I would have done this before I made the placemats with that vintage quilt, because this is really cool. I don't know. I know that most of the time if you're looking at an old quilt and it's yellowed, that's not a good thing. But obviously I'm doing this on purpose with the tea. And I don't know, I just like it. I think it gives it more of a little bit of a rustic charm, a little bit of a country feel, I guess. And just adding that layer of the tea brown or tan or beige, however you want to say that, over the fabric colors, it really just gives it a warmer depth. All right, so I'm going to put those to the side. The last one we have is this. Haha, this is so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to show you this one. So this was the tone-on-tone fabric. This was white fabric with white embossed leaves. And the white embossed leaves were kind of like I don't know. It's like, you know, it's the embossing on fabric, right? But look at this. How cool is that going to look? Oh, I'm so excited about this. All right. So I'm going to rinse this one out. Hopefully the base fabric they embossed on is good enough to hold this tee into it. To be quite honest, I'm not really even sure. I don't know where this fabric came from. It was some stash fabric. And again, it was, you know, I use a lot of tone on tone. I just like the tone on tone fabrics, but this is so cool. And I do have quite a bit of tea left. So I am going to go ahead and stain those fall fabrics that I have. And then I will put in some photos at the end and do a wrap up on all of this, including the Honest Hose review. Yeah, this is so cool. And it's kind of like got a mottled look to it as well, just because it wasn't completely submerged at the same depth in the tea. So it's got some modeling into it, which is it just makes me happy. I really, really like it. All right. And then let's grab these. And there is quite a bit of fabric here. But I think that we'll be able to get it all in there. Maybe I'll I'll prioritize the acorns. That'll look really cool with those leaves, actually. And the reason I'm getting modeling is because when I'm pushing it into the bucket, I'm just kind of bunching it up and then I'll flip it over and just kind of, you know, it's all scrunched up in there. That's why I'm getting that modeling look. If you don't like that, then lay your fabric out relatively flat, maybe like in a 9x13 or a cookie pan or something like that with a good edge on it. And then just submerge it in the tea evenly. And then you won't get that marbling modeling look. But I like that look, so that's what we're doing. Now for this one, I am just gonna go ahead and dilute my tea just a little bit. Just throw some more water in here. I must have another kink. Yep, I do. All right, so their whole no kink hose, I'm not sold on that because I'm getting kinks and I'm not pulling it across the yard or pulling it at great distances or anything. It's just uncoiled out of the box. It kinked, so that's, you know, I don't know. Maybe I have high expectations for my garden hoses, but I expect them to live up to my high expectations. All right. So I'm going to let this fabric soak for about 10 minutes and then I'll get it out and I'll rinse it. And then I'll throw everything in the dryer and get it dry and I'll insert some pictures at the end. But for my wrap up today, what I'm going to say is, okay, so there's things that I like and things that I don't like about the garden hose because, you know, I'm always honest with you. So they told me that this was a no kink heavy duty water hose. And it obviously has gotten some kinks in it, just from getting it out of the box. So I don't think that they can claim that one. I will say it is a sturdy material. It is a heavy duty garden hose. It's not really flimsy. I can't just like squish it with my hand, and I couldn't before the water was running through it either. I do like the handles on both ends just to make it easier to get it attached to your sprayer or to your faucet. So both of those things were great. I liked that part of it. I think when they were like, hey, let's send you a 25-foot garden hose, I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Thanks so much. But 25 feet is really not that long. And I don't know how long of garden hoses that we typically get, but I'm feeling like the garden hoses that we have hooked up in our box and on our reel out in the front of the house are probably 50, not 25. So it's a shorter hose, just know that. And I get myself into trouble with that kind of thing all the time when I'm ordering online, that it sounds like, oh yeah, that's right. But then when you get it, you're like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting. So those would be my comments and my honest review of the garden hose. And I do have a link in the description box down below if you want to go check them out for yourself. They do come in a variety of colors. They do have some fluorescent colors, and I think there's an orange and a blue. And then they also have this black hose that has a red stripe on it. So I don't know. Do you color code your hoses? I don't, but maybe if I was I don't know why I don't know why I would care what color of a hose it is, but anyway, yeah. That's my review. But I hope that you look through your stash at some fabric that you may have that you haven't used just because maybe you loved it at the store when you got it home and you're like, that's not quite the right color. Just try changing it. Try doing some tea stain, or you can do coffee stain. You could also do like the RIT fabric dyes. And try changing the overall tone of the fabric by putting it into a color that you do like, or that does work with other fabrics that you have. Now, the other thing I have seen people do, which is super cool, is they take like a really bright like plaid that's like red and green, and then they tea stain it, or they put like a base brown or something like that over it in the dye. And then it just brings all of those colors down, and it gives you a totally different look and a totally different fabric to play with. If you had like several fabrics in your collection that all of them were bright and fluorescent colors or whatever, but you wanted to use them together somehow, you could totally put some sort of a dye or a tea stain over it and kind of blend all those hues together, and then you would have fabrics that you could use together even if they weren't necessarily intended to be used together to begin with. So play with some dye, play with some tea stain, play with some coffee stain. Allow yourself a little creativity in your craft room or your craft backyard, and just have some fun. Look through your stash and see what you have that you may not have used just because you didn't like the color when you got it home. I mean, it happens to all of us. So anyway, until next time, find joy in all you do. Carve out some time for crafting and creating, and remember, it's always better when you make stuff up.